Hi guys, due to popular demand I'm making a video about basically how the inventory system works that I set up. What I use is a basic array. Most of these variables here you don't need actually, they're just from an old test, but this one down the bottom, it's just the starting inventory of the player. I've just called it INVME, inventory for myself. Now it has at the moment 2 items in there, and it has a list of different different sort of aspects of that item within it. So at the moment, I mean, you can have as many or as few as you want, different just different information on that item. For example, the one water bottle, that's index 0. The first index of any array is always number 0 when you're looking it up. It's just how JavaScript works. And so that's what I can call the name. The second one is index number 1 is quantity. What I've allocated here is what it affects. So in my player, it's in this game that I made. Well, this is not the game, but this is part of the game that I started with a while ago. It has, you know, things like health, hunger, thirst, tiredness, all that sort of stuff. Well, this is just one of the variables that I had set up. I mean, you set up your own variables to do whatever you want according to the game you want. Really, it's up to you. The whole idea really is to it's a lot easier, I find, working with arrays. You can even large arrays of information. You can save an array in one single save, rather than using these menu driven commands here to, you know, save this variable, such and such a variable, to, you know, one at a time. It takes forever. If you're making a decent sized game, you're going to have a lot of variables. You're going to have hundreds, if not several hundred. I've probably, in my current game, not this one, but the one I'm working on, I've probably got like close to 200 or maybe over 200 variables in at the moment. So yeah, it adds up. So this is an example where I like to store information in arrays and just save it that way. It's a lot easier. Depending on your game, you do what you want. So in my game, you have a thirst, and over time it gets the amount you start with, like a set amount, you know, like 200 or whatever it is, 100, and it slowly goes down. Well, this goes down by positive amount, whereas if you apply a negative amount to it, it'll go back up again. So for a certain time, I will tell it to look at this information. This is the name of the variable thirst. This is the amount that it goes back up by. This is the category of the product. You might have a couple of different categories. It might be like, yeah, what, you know, is it a food item, or, you know, other types of things. Can't remember what I had that for there. Don't worry about that. You know, protection, warmth. You could use loads of different things, whatever. You'll have to set up your own variables, obviously, and you know, meters and gauges or whatever to show the condition and if all that sort of thing. And you can link it back to the information you save in the array. So you can change these headings to really whatever you want. I'd probably start with, you know, the name of it first. It's easier, but whatever you want, it's up to you. This is just the picture to show in the inventory when you bring up the inventory. This is the sound, the file name of the sound to play when you use it. This is how many sounds you have set up for that same sound. So if you didn't want the same sound to play every single time, which is very monotonous and boring, you might have 5, you might have 6 or 8 different sounds to randomly select each time. So that's what I have done. But in this case, I'll just put 1 to make it simplify that a little bit. Like any game, you want a lot of variation. So anyway, so let's go in here. Let's go to this water bottle, for example. If you on proximity, so in other words, you don't want to be picking up inventory stuff in the world if it's 2 miles down the road down there. That's a bit silly. So you've got to be within certain distance. So I've just got here a little C native within distance 15, update a temporary variable. I've just called it waters proximity, waters prox. I'll give it a number. If it's another water bottle just over here, I wouldn't use the same waters prox. Well, I could use the same one. I just changed this value. So then I look up and check that different value. So in other words, while I'm standing over here, wouldn't use the exact same value and variable name, so that I could actually accidentally select that water bottle from over here and pick it up. That would be silly. So in other words, you've got more than one item in a same area, change this variable or the value applied to it. In this case, water prox, I've just called it 3. So in other words, same thing, when it leaves, it goes back to 0. So if you click on it, you have to be within proximity, so it checks that this water prox is equal to the value you set up, which it does. So and then it will play a sound. Then it will allow you to pick it up, so make that invisible. And this is the JavaScript that you wanted to show a little bit about. Well, that just simply adds it to your inventory. So my inventory I've called invme. So in other words, it actually, believe it or not, you don't need to look up the arrays as a copy cube variable. So that really is not needed. Funnily enough, for some reason, once you load it in memory, it stays there throughout, whether it's JavaScript or the standard menu-driven variables. Yeah. So anyway, so this is just a variable. Give me the index of water bottle. So it's what it's saying is, do I have a water bottle? If so, just update the quantity. If not, then add that new water bottle to my inventory. So IDX, just short for index. Index. So there's my array name. So index of, then the so it's looking up the text name of the object. You could look up other things, but yeah, that's the easiest way. Look up the name of it. It's going to be unique, something unique. In this case, water bottle. It's saying if the IDX is equal to -1, that means it can't find it. It's not there. So that means add this to the inventory. So in other words, push this bit of information into my inventory me, push that in there and update it. If it is there, then just update the quantity. So that's how I've set up my game. I don't want to be adding a new inventory slot for every single thing you pick up. So if you've already got one, it just updates the quantity. It saves space, looks cleaner. I don't know, it's easier too actually. So if you have got one, it's saying here else, just get the IDX, which it's found. If it's not -1, it must have found something. So that's the name of it, and that's the first thing in the list of categories for that one item. Update the quantity. The quantity is the second one. So this is index 0. The second slot or index is going to be number 1, index 1, which is the quantity of 1 here as well. So it's saying IDX plus 1. So in other words, update this quantity in my inventory. So add it from whatever it is to just add 1. So plus plus, it means just add 1 to it, and that's it. That's very simple. So go back to my inventory here. So in other words, there's the quantity, just updates that quantity if you've already got it. Now, once you get into the inventory, which is under HUD, inventory back is what starts it. That's invisible to start with. So notice how it's got child nodes. So anything under that can be all visible. But if the master node is invisible, everything gets turned off. So that's actually good. You just turn the main one on and the whole thing just pops up. Anyway, so if you got any inventory items in these slots and you click on it, so for example 0. So I've just matched it all up with always use starting with 0. It's just how JavaScript works. You'll get used to it, and it makes more sense when everything sort of consistent way of doing it. So the first slot is called slot number 0. You can call it whatever you want, but that's just how I've dealt with it to start with. So in other words, so when I open the inventory, I press the tab key. It's here somewhere. So it is there. You press the tab. A little bit of complications here. You could probably just redo this, make it simplified. Just call it like menu or something, inventory. I think I've got 2 variables for this. Is that right? Yeah. So like menu and menu inventory. That's an unnecessary complication that I've got rid of since this in my current game. I don't use that anymore. I just use the one variable. I just use menu is equal to 0, meaning 0 off, 1 is on. That's why I just stick to on and off, a yes or no, that sort of way. I just use 1 and 0. It's the easiest way for me. So if it's off, so then turn the inventory on. It's just saying, okay, so that's just updating the target. That's a different issue. So that when you switch back from the inventory, which is using a different camera, under called menu here, it recenters the screen. That's a different issue. Go into that later. But basically, so you've pressed tab. In other words, you just selected your inventory. It's going to want to update whatever's in that slot 0. So this is how I've done it. There's many ways to skin a cat. I've got more efficient code than this actually in my current game, but this still works okay. All I've had to do is change that number, so I can copy and paste as many of these slots as I want. Going down all the way here, it'll just add one. Go SLT6, 7, 8, 9. All I've got to do in there is just go in there and change that number to match the slot number. That's it, and then the rest of it will automatically update and be working fine. So what it's saying, so I've got a slot, and I need to know the index number of that slot I want to know the index, to look up. So for example, the first one is 0. So if I multiply that by 11, how many different things? So notice it goes from 0 to 10. So that's actually 11 different category or item types, if you like, of that one object. You can have as many as you want. You're better off adding more. If you're going to make a proper game, you're seriously going to probably want about 15 to 20 for that one item. I think I'm up to about 12 or 13 in my current game, and I need to add 1 or 2 more. So you always find you need to add more than less over time. So if you just add it in the beginning, it's a lot easier. But anyway, so at the moment I've got 11 slots. Sorry, 11 categories per object. We'll call it that way. So in other words, if this same code runs under all of the it's the exact same code under all these ones here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's all exactly the same code. They're not different. So if you were to select this one, this is like slot 1. So you click on that. See that there? I've just changed that number to 1. That's all I've done at the top. So the same thing. So multiply it by 11 because you've got 11 items per category. So I need to count the index numbers. So the first of my array, the first 11 categories apply to this one object in this box here, and then it goes from 12 onwards. But because it starts at 0, well, that's still correct. It's 0 to 11. So 11 in total. So yeah, that's correct. It's multiply it by 11 so that when you get to slot 1, which is the second slot, it multiplies that by 11. It starts, so the index now that we're looking at for this box starts at 11. So that goes from 0 to 10, 11 objects, 11 items, and this goes from 11 to 22. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so when you get to slot 2, for example, 2 times 11 is 22. That'll start from 22, and add 11 and so forth. So it's, in other words, the data in the array is one big long line separated by comma, and it gets saved that way as an array. So it's a basic form of array. There are higher level arrays, but because it's not ES6, you can't use JSON stringify to save it. Best of my knowledge, I couldn't work out how to do it, so that's why you've got to just use something basic like this. Alrighty, so you clicked on the if there's something in there, it's going to know if there's something in there to start with, obviously. So what it's saying is, let's go back to the first one, make it a bit easier. So slot 0. Bring that up. Alright, so if my inventory array, a list of items that I'm currently, as the player is holding, it's looking for the quantity. Now IDX plus 1, that's so it always starts with 0. I mean the first item. So in this case it starts at 0. The next lot will start from 11 to 22. But in this case it starts at 0, so I want to know if there's any quantity of that that item. Yeah, so if the item is more than 0, then set up a new variable called quantity. make that equal to that number that you just looked at, the quantity, and then adjust the quantity. So that's minus means just take one off. So whatever it is, it's going to be 1 or more, because if it's 0, it would have been removed already. Just take off 1 unit, update the units. If it comes to 0, that'll be dealt with later on. So now it's saying, so I've updated the quantity, but now I still need to update the array. So this is the array IDX plus 1 now equals the quantity, the new quantity, which is 1 less than what you had before, in other words. Now the effects, if you're using it, whatever it is, it could be food, items, clothing, whatever. Depends if it's going to affect different things. So in this case, IDX plus 2, this affects thirst, the variable thirst. It's updating the variable thirst, and how much, if it's going to change the thirst, I've just called regen, because it could be your health, it could be, it could be your hunger, it could be energy, a lot of things. So IDX plus 3, so I'll put that in the next one, effects. So as a negative figure, I mean, you can use positive or negatives, but it depends how you set it up. In my case, the negative figure reverses the debit and increases the amount back up to the thirst or the health or whatever it is. Sound, IDX plus 9, so there's 9 there. So the sound is called drink dot, OGG, whatever it is, yeah, under here. See? Well, in this case, it's called drink 1. So it's within my JavaScript. It actually will automatically select a random number that you based on how many sounds you've set up for that. So you might have 3 sounds. It might be drink 1, drink 2, and drink 3, and then it'll automatically random select one of those and just play it each time. So that gives you a variation that way instead of the same sound. Same sound's always boring. All right. So in this one here, this is the number of sounds, IDX plus 10. That's the last one. That's just, in this case, I've limited it to 1, but normally I'd have about 5 or 6, something like that. So it's saying, okay, that's the number of sounds available, and that'll be updated in a second, but here it's just saying, okay, set copy variable effects. That's the name of the variable effects, but that variable equals the IDX plus 2 thirst. Thirst is a variable in itself, so you can actually do that. You can say set the variable, which is a text under the variable, this one here, which is, so in other words, it's within under a layer, if you like. So effects, the variable under effects is the name of a variable, and I'm saying to update that underlying variable to the regen, so -5 in this case. So yeah, and it only does it for a certain time, reverses it, and then stops. So that's how it works. And here it is. Here's the random generator, pretty standard. Math floor, make sure you have +1 at the end, otherwise you won't get all the numbers. It'll always go, so math floor means it's looking, look at the lowest whole number, so it might be 9.9, it'll pick up 9 instead of 10. It'll never get to 10 unless you put an add +1 here. Alright, so this is my game. I mean, you do it how you like. I've got player health. It starts at 200. I'm just saying here, if the health is greater than 120, then play a different type of sound, as in a special variation of the sound. Otherwise, play a normal sound. So, I mean, you don't need to do that. You can just get rid of that and just have, see, I've got A, you don't need that. You don't really need that. You just could just play it like that. And this one here, update the slot. So now you've played a sound slot. So SLT plus slot variables, that number you changed here. That's the first slot in here. It's saying, okay, if the quantity is still greater than 0, then update the text to show, like, if you've got 2 or more. If it's only got 1 item, I don't want to update the text to show 1, because it's just totally don't need it, unnecessary. So I only like to update the quantity if it's more than 1. Otherwise, I just don't have any quantity, because it's obvious you've only got the 1 item. Anyway, that's just how I've done it. So it's saying if it's more than 1, update the text to the quantity. The quantity is taken from up here, very quantity, so that's already been reduced by 1. Otherwise, update the text to show nothing, show no text. If it's only one item, then blank it out. Now it's saying here, if the quantity is 0, so you've used the item, played the sound, done all that, everything. It's saying if the quantity is now 0, as in you only had one item to use, remove that from the player inventory because you don't have it anymore. Splice just means to remove it, and there's the IDX starting at the first slot in the array. In this case, it's 11 times the slot, which was basically 0. Start at 0 and remove 11 items from the array. So it's the first 11 items, in other words, starting from 0 to 10. It'll take out because you've used it up. So and then SuperCube variable refresh. This just tells it to refresh all the pictures and stuff because the order of the items will be swapped, may be needed to be refreshed and changed around, so just refresh everything. Set C node property node image to nothing, so get rid of the image that was showing up in that the one that you used. In case that's only there just in case it was the last one on the list, the far right hand one. If you used that up, then it just blanks that out. Otherwise, it's not needed because you're going to refresh everything anyway. So the bracket, usually make sure these brackets always line up, a bit of a pain in the butt. 2 brackets there, one fixed up there, then all the way up to there, so that'll work. Yep, so that's fine. Okay, so the rest of it is just refreshing. That will, when you start the inventory, this will just tab up, so when you press the tab button and you've gone up, it's gone up, sorry, it's saying, okay, we'll update everything. Yeah, so this is the one that updates all of them by default. You know, you don't want this running all the time, you just only need to update it when you're opening it again, don't you? Or if you've just used up something and you need to refresh everything. That's the only other time you need to run something like this. There's the slot starts at 0, so it's saying if the quantity, IDX plus 1, is the quantity. If that is greater than 0, as in you actually have something in the slot you've just clicked on, then update the texture. Sorry, no, you haven't clicked on it yet. This is just when you're opening it. So it's saying, look at that slot and just update the texture, so the image and the quantity if you have something in there. That's all. So it does that automatically. There's a better way to do this. You do it as a loop, and you know, for I equals items. If I is less than, you know, items or whatever it is, I equals 0. You use that type of loop, and that's a better way to do it rather than individual JavaScript like I've got here per individual slot. But either way, it still works. You know what I mean? It'll still work. It's okay. At the end of the day, you just want something that works. So that's the idea of this. It just refreshes everything when on opening. So, yep. So everything's automatically. All you do for each time is if you're copying and pasting, so like slot 6, 7, 8, 9, making more, you just update the number here, and that's it. That's all you got to do. So yeah, so updates the texture. If the quantity is more than 1, update the actual quantity to show the quantity. Otherwise, get rid of any quantities. Same thing. That's on opening. The inventory on left mouse button. This is to check. So you've clicked on one of the items. This will. What was it? This one is. Yeah, this is refresh. So you've used up something on one of the boxes anywhere in the whole inventory. What it's saying is you don't actually need that. You could get rid of that. Get CopyCube variable refresh. If refresh is 1, as in you've just clicked on an item and used it all up from something to nothing, we're going to refresh the slot. And it's done. This same code runs on each slot, so it's, in other words, it's a bit like a for loop, but this is the long way. I wouldn't do that now, but this is something to start you off anyway, so you get an idea how it works. Yeah, so it gets the texture, IDX plus 8, you know, it's all there. What is PNG? That's the name of the texture. update the texture with the image, update the quantity. Yeah, so so this is else. Okay, so this is if quantity here is greater than 0, then update the texture and the quantity. If not, if it's not, then if there's no quantity, then it's saying get rid of the image. If there's an existing image there, get rid of it and put blank. Blank, in other words, two of those makes a blank. If the quantity is greater than 1, update the text as the quantity. Otherwise, just blank out the quantity because you've only got one item. You don't need to show the number. It's pretty straightforward. That's basically how it works. So run that. Oops, my mistake. Okay. Alright, so that's normally how you start, because I had the thing visible to start with. Should have been invisible. Okay, so pick up an item. A little bit touchy occasionally, but yep, picks it up. Tab. There's your inventory. You got 3 items. You click on one of the other boxes, nothing should happen because there's nothing there. Click on this one, for example. Plays the sound, reduces the quantity. Same thing with that, like a bandage type thing or whatever you want. You can use whatever you want. And once you've used it up, it would have refreshed, and see how everything's scrolled to the left. So use that, it's gone. Click it again, nothing happens. It's because it's gone. Click that one, and same thing. So yeah, so it works. You just got to understand how the JavaScript is working in the background. So let's save that. I'll just quickly show you my my game, which is quite a bit superior to that, to be honest, at the moment, because I've changed it so many times. But that nonetheless is a good a basic example of how it works. So yeah, these days I've done quite a bit of work to it. It's pretty good, fairly happy with it. So for example, play it. We'll just go to continue from a previous save. Should work alright. Okay, I got a few issues there, but oh, okay. Oh, that's right. I'd started in the cave. I don't want that just now. Oops. Let's go back here. Oops, there we are. Where's all my stuff? Did I put stuff away here or not? Can't remember. So I got here. You can drop it, pick it up. Makes different sounds. You can use stuff. Oh, we've got something flying over there. That's weird. Oh, look at that. You can use items. I've just been working on this version recently. It's got a few bugs I'm working out, but anyway. So if I want to click, I can just use that. It's in inventory. You can't click on it on the keyboard. It's G. Makes a sound. Turns the light on. Drops it. You can actually use that as like a glow stick. You can use a swivel rail to move it around. You can move it around there. Drop it. Pick it up again. Whatever. Yeah, so you can run with it. And when you stop, you can click on it. Oh, at the moment, you shouldn't be able to do that, but you can right now. You can put it away, put it in the inventory, put it here. Yeah, type of thing. Get back. Yeah. As you can see, there's a slight bug there, but I'll fix that up. But anyway, so yeah, lots of things can be improved. But that other example, at least, is a pretty reasonable example to start with. Oops. So you can see how it works. Yeah. Any questions? You can give me a bell. No worries. Cheers.